Hello, hello, hello. So happy to have you with us. So, we're going to get right into the finale of Bachelor in Paradise. And we're going to just talk about each couple. And then we'll talk about some of the things that happen on set. And then we'll talk about the next Bachelor and what we think about that. So let's start with one of the most confusing couples of the season, Katie and Chris. So Katie has been very expressive about her feelings and emotions for Chris. However, he has had a hard time trying to figure out not only how he feels, but just be that unwavering force in a relationship. Katie has been pretty constant with how she feels and pretty unwavering and strong. And if you remember the last week, she definitely held on to the idea of them being in love and them having something after they left Paradise. It was Chris who was kind of waffling a bit. And even up until the last talk that they had, Chris looked like he was literally walking the plank, and Katie was like trying to get him back. And I said in my last video, it's probably going to be an exhausting relationship because she's always probably going to have to do that. She's always going to have to convince him and remind him of why they're in a relationship and why it's good and this, that, and the other. She's going to be exhausted. And what did she say during the finale and after the rose when they were on the couch? That it's exhausting and that her emotional tank is not full because she's filling everyone else's. I really think Katie needs counseling to get so that she doesn't feel like she needs to continue to be bringing this, keep continuing the patterns. I think she needs counseling so she can stop and break these patterns. And I think she needs to leave Chris. He's emotionally abusive in my opinion, because he's withholding his affection from her. And she's being manipulated by his, oh, I've been hurt before and it's been so long excuse of why he's not opening up. And if she wants to continue to be the one always fighting for the relationship, always, talking him off the ledge and, talking him back from walking down the plank, then, she's going to need to move on. And she wasn't even wearing her ring during the taping of the show. And that's no surprise for me. That's no surprise. So yes, I was right in that they got engaged. I think I put them at 3 engagement rings likely to get engaged, and they did get engaged. But like I said, I think they're on shaky ground. I don't know if this is going to last. She's either going to continue to be the martyr and take all of this crap and be the burden of carrying the burden of this relationship and not getting her needs met, and him not basically speaking her love language. Chris does not speak Katie's love language, and that's the whole point. And it doesn't even seem like he's willing to try to change that. Houston, we have a problem. That's a big problem. I might like getting gifts, but I may love quality time. If you're unwilling to spend quality time with me and you're just giving me affirmations, I'm just making up an example, and you're just giving me affirmations, I'm going to feel unloved. It's until you start spending quality time with me that I'm going to start feeling more loved. And Chris doesn't seem to get that. Katie needs the affirmations. She needs to hear. Now this is a real example because she said she wants to hear that he loves her and all this other stuff. And she's like, I tell him, and he's like, yeah, she makes me feel so good. But why don't you make your girl feel good? Why don't you go out on a limb and this is not even being self-sacrificial. Why don't you put your own feelings aside and say, you know what? I'm going to show her love the way she needs to feel love so her emotional tank can be more full. Why don't you give her some words of affirmation, Chris? Why don't you tell her that you love her and that you think this and that of her so she can get filled up? His refusal to do that and act like and use the excuse of him being hurt before and not being in a relationship in a long time before is a farce. He needs to get with the program and tell this girl that he loves her and share affirmations with her before it's too late. This engagement is not going to last if it keeps going the way it's going. That's how I feel about that. Let's continue. Okay, let's move on. The other couple I want to talk about is Demi and Kay. Now, I didn't really quite understand why they allowed an outsider to come on Bachelor in Paradise. We've never seen her before. We don't know her. All we know is what she tells us and how we saw her on the island. I didn't agree with her coming on the island because if they indeed do that now, then they should open up casting for outsiders, because they should just make it, because it is a successful show, and they should just make it like whoever wants to be on the island. But they were pushing the storyline so hard this year, this season of BIP. So they explored Demi's relationship with someone who has never been on in the Bachelor franchise. I gave them 2 engagement reasons likely to be engaged, and at the end of this episode, they were. Darn, I have to record that over. I lost my audio because I was getting an alert on my phone. Moving on to Clay and Nicole. So this picture really denotes like exactly what their relationship was about. I mean, Nicole was always looking to Clay, regarding his feelings, how he looked, how he felt, blah, blah, blah. And Nicole was supposedly in love with Clay, but Clay never said those words. He never said those words to Katie. I mean, not Katie, Angela. Clay never said those words to Angela. He told Mike that. Mike told Angela that when they were on their one-on-one. And we knew that, and he didn't say it and that was after like 8 or 9 months of them being together. Can you imagine? And he's not going to say it to Nicole. He never will. And Nicole and Clay did not work out. I gave them 1 ring likely to be engaged. I really should have just gave them 0 rings, but it was on a scale of like 1 to 3. I voted them least likely to be engaged because looking at his past and looking at how he presented himself, look, he said he was over Angela. They broke up 3 months ago, but he wasn't. He wasn't over her. And his identity is so wrapped up in football. And this is the problem with it being wrapped up so much in what you do. But at the same time, a lot of guys have their identity with what they do, like in terms of like their self-worth. And he needs to find himself again. He was really gung-ho about getting into the NFL. That did not work out. And now I think he's just trying to find his place in the world. So this is just not the time for him to be in a relationship. And I believe he realizes that, but he doesn't want to admit it. And then we go to the comments. Annalise, even though she did it in a shady way and she aired it out in public and she was, categorizing it as her being a friend to him when she really wasn't. She was just being shady and wanting to like air his dirty laundry. But as much as I thought she should have been concentrating on her own relationship and just kind of stop bringing up Angela, in Paradise when she's not there, and concentrate on her own love life. And if she did that, she would have probably been in Paradise longer and potentially found someone. She did make a good point about, that was the longest sentence. She did make a good point about Clay. And she said that, his situation is not really well and you're trying to this, that, and the other. So basically she was alluding to, and you can go back, I kind of say it word for word, what she said, alluding to, I believe, his financial situation. Then he himself made the comment about, when he was talking to Angela in week 5, he said something like, and it's like you wanted me to support you. And I'm thinking to myself, Okay, duh, she probably does want you to support her in marriage. So what's the big deal? If the big deal is he is not there yet. He's trying to figure out how he's going to probably support himself. Maybe, I don't know. Where does his life go after football, right? So that's, where the education or investments or whatever comes in. I hope that, that's what I guess these footballers have to diversify themselves, because once that ends, what are you doing after that? So that's where he's at right now. And it was pretty evident in those two scenarios. And I think that he is not yet admitted it to himself, but he's starting to see that after a 9-month relationship with Angela, and after this intense 1 month or 2 month relationship with Nicole. Tasia tried to tell Nicole about this. Yes, she did. And she also confronted Clay about it. And it was evident to Tasia that something wasn't right. And then in addition to Clay going to the wedding and being the one invited to the after, reception or whatever, he never, they didn't show, even at the wedding, they didn't show Clay introducing Nicole. That's another flag that he wasn't head over heels on her, and he was, warming up to her slowly. Then the other thing is, and actually I don't think that's a good sign, to be honest, if a guy is like warming up to a girl. I don't, now that I'm thinking about it, like, it's usually the woman who's warming up to the guy, not the other way around. So if the guy is not just like off the bat, like, crazy for the girl or really like the girl, it's the exception and not the rule that he would get with her, i.e. The Ashley and Jared scenario. And I think Jared did like Ashley, but not like that. And it took a long time for that to really happen. But anyway, I'm not going to go into that. So back to Clay and Nicole, and even during they didn't even have an overnight date. That's the other thing. They didn't even have an overnight date, because Clay sat up there after they had their little talk and had their dinner. He sat up there and said, "Oh, I need to think about it. What do you need to think about?" she said. And I'm glad she actually did get upset, because she has a right to be upset. And I'm glad she left the room. And I wish that he would just admit to himself that he's not ready to be in any type of relationship, and just take some time to figure his situation out. Him, not being a football player anymore, and just getting himself back to the normal life, I guess. Because I don't think football is a normal lifestyle. Not many people achieve that level that he was at, and even higher, to the NFL. So he needs to get back to reality a bit, and then maybe find a wife. But I think he deluded himself to think he was ready for everything when he really, really wasn't. So that's Clay and Nicole. I wish them the best. And I did not see them after the rose, after Paradise. And I think it's because they're probably just tired of everything. And if they were there, let me know. I'm rewatching the episode now. I may have missed it, but I didn't see them. And we just wish them the best. But I was right about it. Someone whom shall remain nameless. But after all of that, Dylan just stayed persistent, and he knew what he wanted. In fact, I think he came on the island. He didn't say this during the after the rose or after Bachelor in Paradise talk, but he did in the earlier episodes say he came on there to meet her. And he really wanted to meet her, and that's who he wanted to pursue. And then after meeting her, he kept pursuing her. He wanted to pursue her. He didn't want to pursue anyone else. And so that's where his attention was. And he really kept his pursuit going. And they became like the like best couple out of all of the couples, the most solid, the most enduring, the one that you knew was going to last in the end. So that's exactly what happened. They had the easiest talk, obviously, in week 6, going into the dinner and going into the overnights in Paradise and the fantasy suites. They already knew that they wanted to be with each other forever. And all it took was them solidifying it with an engagement. And now they're engaged. And they're, we learned that Hannah's moving to California. We were told that he was wanting to go to Alabama to meet her family after everything, and it looks like this happy couple will make it. Now, will they get married and then that next year in the season of The Bachelor in Paradise season 7? I don't know, but we wish them all happiness because they were the cutest couple, and I mean that's what Paradise is all about: finding love and solidifying it with an engagement. And they did that. That's why I love Bachelor in Paradise. Okay, so the next couple that we're going to talk about are everyone's favorite couple, Hannah and Dylan. So they obviously went through a lot with Hannah, being involved with belief. So now that we've discussed all of the couples, I want to talk a little bit about some of the on-set drama that happened with the cast. And basically, a lot of the drama stemmed, regarding Blake and the Kaylin situation, him releasing text messages, and him feeling like he needed to defend himself because she was making it seem like he was so awful and all this other stuff. And I agree. When you watch back the season, and I said this in my analysis videos, that I felt like she was giving him too much power, giving him her heart and her self-esteem and everything else all on a platter and saying, hey, take this. And that was just from one night in Stagecoach. Clearly, I think there's maybe some self-esteem, self-worth issues going on with Kaylin that she needs to address, because she would not be feeling, and she's still crying about it like it's a raw nerve. And for me, I think she's crying because of the embarrassment and everything else as well, and she has a right to express her emotions. But to me, I think some of those tears are still coming from the fact that she feels so hurt about this. And my whole thing is this: if this is a guy that I don't even know if she actually loved him. Now that's the scary part. But this is a guy you hooked up with, okay, in Stagecoach. You didn't want it to be a secret. You guys said you're going to talk about it honestly. But just being honest doesn't mean you need to blab everything that happened. That's what she's confusing. Just because that's not being honest. That's being loose-lipped. That's what that's called. If no one asks you, oh, you have a relationship with Blake, and you're like, I'm just being honest. We slept together. We hooked up. I'm not saying that she did that. But that's kind of what she was making it seem like, because he didn't go around, oh yeah, I dated I'm looking forward to dating on the island in Paradise. Oh, by the way, I slept with Kaylin, just so you know. Like, it seemed like that's what she wanted him to do, and the fact that he didn't do that, her feelings got all hurt and all this stuff. But regardless of that, he did apologize. And then later, that still wasn't enough. I think they had the backstage moment, and they show the cameras, and she was like, he didn't apologize. I'm like, see, now this is a problem. Like, there's something else going on here, because she pulled that same thing when she was going around campaigning on what a horrible person Blake is in Paradise. She's like, oh my gosh, he said that you're a mistake. You're a mistake. And then she said that twice. And then she spoke to she said that, on camera, was like a few times. I'm probably sure it was like a few times. Go back to that video. Then she goes to her friend when she was talking in private to her friend. She's like, oh no, he didn't say I was a mistake. He was just saying like the whole situation. But then when she confronted Blake, she goes back to her whole campaign slogan, "You called me a mistake." And I'm just like, get the story straight, number one. Number two, it's not even the story. Just like, get it, just be clear. And let's be clear. He didn't, he didn't call you a mistake. But even if he did, why are you taking it as gospel to the point where you're like totally torn up about it? And it seems like she's still kind of torn up about it. And that's why I recommend counseling for Kaylin, to move past this. And then it's obviously amplified because it's on camera and all this other stuff that we, don't understand because we're not in paradise. But I am happy to report that she enjoys being on the van and maybe showering once a week. I don't know. But she enjoys her time with Dean. So I'm happy that actually continued. So I was saying, I think in my last video, like, I don't think it's going to last, blah, 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 but they're still together. So we'll see if that ends in an engagement. He seems so supportive of her. So clearly there's a lot of love between them, and I'm so happy to see that. One couple I was extremely happy to hear had reconciled. And this had nothing to do with the optics of them as a couple, but just, the symbolism of what it means to kind of realize you may have made a mistake. Well, anyway, Tasia and JPJ. So I was so happy to learn that after Paradise ended, it didn't take but only 2 weeks for Tasia to decide to go to Maryland and speak with JPJ. She told him, I couldn't stop thinking about you in the last 2 weeks, and I want to give this a shot. And he was so happy, and he said, "Okay, well, will you be my girlfriend?" And she said yes. So I just thought that was so sweet, and I'm just so happy that they actually are allowing themselves to love and to be happy. And I think what was holding Tasia back was that it did not come in a package that maybe she thought it would come in, and also just getting real with herself that she actually did have a lot of feelings for him, and he knew who she was. He thought she was amazing. He was like totally in love with her, and it didn't take much. And I just think this is also a very, very good reminder for all of us ladies out there, just in general, to know that like when a guy really likes you and desires you and wants to be with you, it's not going to take much convincing. Like, he's going to want you by his side. And okay. And they also talked about the whole situation with Derek, Tasia, and JPJ. There was definitely some overlap there. I mean, they were kind of she was interested in Derek. She felt he was a little bit more settled, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to relive the whole thing, but what I got from those clips was that, men know men, and some kind of way JPJ did not think highly of Derek. And it could have just been what he said about the girls and being able to hook up with them, or something else he saw, and then the combination of it being about the women that JPJ loved, Tasia, that created a lot of drama. They also kind of mentioned that whole Jordan and Christian fight, which I cover in a whole separate video on my channel. And I'm totally in agreement with Jordan in that it was self-defense. I didn't think it was right that Mike kept interrupting and having side conversation to try to debate that and disagree with that with Jordan. I think it just wasn't his time to chat or to speak and to let Jordan say what he had to say. But clearly Mike doesn't agree with that, and I'm sure there are a lot of other people who do not agree with that assessment, and title to your opinion. But when you play the video back, and I don't think they edited that portion of it, you do see Christian putting up his elbow, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into that. It's covered in my video on this channel. But I think that we do see that Christian is very much still a hothead. He was still ready to get things going again, and even welcomed it by inciting Jordan to come to potential blows by coming to his face and apologizing. Like, come on, that's not going to happen, guys. You guys need to stay in your separate lanes and move on. They also talked about Hannah G and the Tasia situation. I think it was wrong. I think I didn't like the way they were making Tasia look like a mean girl. It wasn't a mean girl. I covered that in one of my videos when that happened that week. And I think it was like week 4, or it wasn't even week 4. It was probably like earlier on than that. But I do talk a little bit about that. And I don't think Tasia was being a mean girl, although I did kind of see some of that sort of tendency when she was coming to Nicole's defense and they were making fun of Angela, but that's neither here nor there. There's a separate situation. They also spoke about the whole Dean, Connor, Blake situation, which I don't even want to go on into. And prior to that, about the whole pre-conversations and how that could affect the integrity of Bachelor, of those relationships forming in Bachelor in Paradise. The other thing, I'm not going to spend much more time on this, but Blake releasing those text messages, that was kind of shady. And he's just kind of been going off on the deep end with where he was on Becca's season, is my opinion. But I'm not going to get so into it. But I think it's still kind of sinking in that he actually did use private conversations to, bring to the public so that his image can be repaired, which is just not good any way you cut it, in a sense. But I guess he felt he had to do it. But anyway, I don't want to really talk about that. I'm tired of talking about him and all those situations. I'm happy that Peter is the Bachelor, and from hearing the conversation that he had, or the reflections he had about being the Bachelor, they talked about how he, lived or grew up right next to the Bachelor mansion, his family, he's close-knit with his family. I'm really excited to see his crazy, quirky, fun family as well on this season. I'm excited to learn about his faith, values, what he looks for in a woman, that sort of thing. And he seems to be very appreciative and grateful for the opportunity. I forgot to mention, they also talked to some of the families who've had children, and they let them run around the stage and talk about the closet birth, and that was really cute and nice. But back to the other thing they showed was the van that Dean and Caelynn spend time in. Oh boy. But anyway, back to the pick for the Bachelor. I'm excited. You guys let me know if you want me to cover it come January. I wonder if, I didn't check if Bachelor Winter Games is going to be going on this season again or not. But at any rate, I hope you enjoyed this season finale review of Bachelor in Paradise. And let me know what you think, and I will see you soon, or you'll hear from me soon. All right, bye.